Hey, IBMOR brothers. Sometimes you just don't know where to start, so you just hit the button and press play and start speaking, and hopefully what comes out will make sense and be coherent. But last week or so, there's been this death of the Manosphere, or the end of the Manosphere, because YouTube is doing its biannual purge. Or so it seems. So everybody's all up in arms and all the feathers in the air because YouTube is going through its thing, even though it's not just a black manosphere, it's all of YouTube in all sectors. But somehow we think that we're being picked on. Well, that's human beings, I suppose, because black people still think they live in a bubble. That what's on the outside of the black sector doesn't matter, and it does. And YouTube is going through its thing, and by extension Google, not just YouTube, but Google, Facebook, Twitter, the whole social media sector is going through some kind of purge. So when something like that happens, all of a sudden there's this gloom and doom, like the black manosphere or the Negro manosphere or the manosphere period is going to just all of a sudden crumble, because people think that this was created out of nothing, that what goes on the manosphere, what goes on in social media is just entertainment. It's created out of nothing. And of course it's not. The reason that entity exists over this period of time, especially on social media, is because there's a need for it. There's an underlying need for what is said on the air, or what is said in public, what is said on YouTube by the men. There's a need for it. That's the reason that it happened 10 years ago. That's the reason that it's happening now. That's the reason that it will continue, is because the underlying cause has not gone away. So when you see non-experts talk about the end of the manosphere, or the black manosphere it is an extension of, you gotta figure out where they're getting their information and why all of a sudden we're taking their message to heart. Because if they were that right, if they were that good at being an analyst, or if they'll be a predictor, then everybody would know about them, and everybody would actually wait on bated breath to see what they're going to say next. But we take people's word that have never been right. And I'm talking about Reg the bad guy, right? Reg the bad guy declares the end of the manosphere, and everybody's up in arms. Like Reg the bad guy is somebody that actually knows what he's talking about, and he doesn't. Because there's an underlying need. All these naysayers take advantage of that underlying need. The black manosphere or the Negro manosphere is just a name that you give to a phenomenon, that you give to a group of people. You can name it anything that you want. But the thing is, the underlying cause, the underlying reason, and the people that make it up, which is probably like 100,000 guys. Those 100,000 guys show up every week to different sectors. They don't show up for nothing. They don't listen all day, every day for nothing. They have to get some kind of value out of it. If it didn't make sense, it wouldn't be here. I would not have 30,000 subs if what I said didn't make sense. And you say that about O'Shea, you can say that about Obsidian and whoever. If it didn't make sense, it wouldn't happen. The reason that you exist is because there's a need for it. Everybody says it's just entertainment. Everybody says that people are trying to make money. People are trying to make money from it. I have no gripes about it. Just like a documentary or film that touches you has to make money for it to get made. It's not a gift. There's labor involved. If people put down their hard-earned dollars to have this entity survive, there must be a need for it. And that's what people forget. People look at the beefs, they look at the words thrown about, they look at the super chats, they look at the cash apps, whatever it is, that's what they look at. They don't look at the underlying cause or the underlying reason why something exists. Everybody wants to believe that listeners or the people out there are fools, or idiots, or sheep, or little children, and they're not. They're grown men. They're grown men that need a community, that need to hear something, that need to hear a different perspective that they never thought of. That's a need. That's a psychological need. I know in this material culture, and Ram just talked about a machine culture that we live in, which is a material culture, that everybody wants to see receipts on everything. If it doesn't change the world, or if it doesn't change the material on the ground, then what are you doing? If you're not trying to build something or make connection that's physical, then it doesn't mean anything. And a lot of people on here, I'm not going to mention any name, a lot of people on here forget that this stuff, or what you hear, change the way you think, change your worldview, inspire you to do something else, inspire you to change the trajectory of your life. If you change a man's worldview, you change the trajectory of his life, because different avenues open up to some things that he never wanted to investigate in the first place. Whether it's to go to the continent and live, whether it's to open up a business, tutor children, raise the children that he has, take control of his kids, get a better woman or not get a woman, learn a new trade, feel better about himself instead of being depressed. Those are psychological needs. Those change the culture. Those inspire people to do something else, or be a better person, or get involved or get interested in something else. See the world as a broader perspective rather than the narrow perspective that you've seen it at. If you had no need for psychological needs, then all the psychiatrists and psychologists and self-help gurus and all the life coaches would be unnecessary. Your mind drives the body. The way you think drives your actions. The old biblical verse, as a man thinketh, so is he. As a man thinketh, so is his paradigm. Now, I don't agree with all the beefs that go on back and forth with people cussing each other out and the non-productive panels that go on. I don't agree with that. Maybe that is something that has to be done to shake things out, because there's a new energy out here. People are deciding to take matters into their own hands where they didn't before. Now, how they do it, and some of it's going to be destructive. Some of it's going to be constructive. Issues have to work themselves out. You can't change an entire culture in the matter of, 10 years or so, or whatever it is, from the first gender wars or whatever they call it. Can't change it in 10 years. Now, I was listening to Lowcast's video. I didn't listen to all of it, so I will listen to the rest of it later. But I was listening to the beginning portion, okay? I heard that, there's this thing is that the Manosphere, or the Black Manosphere, was hijacked. In other words, for whatever reason, they think that the first group of people that actually came out in the first gender war was superior. I got one word that I make too, and I'm going to use it here. Bullshit. Say it again. Bullshit. If it was superior, it would still be here. If it was superior, the women couldn't have run them off. If it was superior, they could come back and start another one. They didn't. Why? Black Men Vent is back. Black Ram is still here. A lot of the first gen gender war guys were there when I came about. I came about 2013. A lot of the first wave gender war guys were still around. So how is the second wave able to come up and not only stay around, bring new energy, grow the group, but actually obliterate the other side? Because for the most part, those black women are gone. They don't have the talking points anymore. The second wave Black Manosphere, as you want to call it, because I don't think you called it the Black Manosphere in 1.0. Nobody actually called it that, at least not to my knowledge. They failed. Were they noble in their failing? Did I hear everything that was going on? A lot of stuff I did, because a lot of stuff was on Blog Talk. Sergeant Willie Pete is still echoing the same stuff that he was talking about 10 years ago. That stuff failed because it wasn't grounded in anything. When we came up, we grounded this stuff in facts. We dug into the books. We actually used arguments that they couldn't refute. All the mumbo jumbo that women were actually coming up with, that stuff got killed. Used in their own literature. So it wasn't hijacked. It did what it's supposed to do. It was actually successful, which is what people are pissed off about. It's supposed to evolve. It's supposed to get stronger. Last I looked, people getting more subs. There, for whatever reason, there is more money coming in. That you can build a business off of this. The only reason you can build a business off of this is because it's more successful. It's so successful that now the guys are turning on each other instead of at women, because most of the women are gone. Most of the women's arguments were found to be weak and wanting and made nonsensical, which should have happened in the first gender war. Now, why it didn't, I have no idea, because I wasn't there. Probably because most of the guys in the first gender war were young and immature. Because those guys at the time were in their 20s, and in your 20s, you don't know shit. So now more mature guys come along and actually know something, have been through things, have experienced relationships and children, all that kind of stuff. We can talk to women in a certain way that young guys couldn't. But now it's worked so well, now everybody's concentrating on beefs. Beefs went on back then. People were beefing back then. When I came through, the first wave gender war people were beefing with me. And I found out they didn't have a leg to stand on. That's what I found out. And we brought in other people that were way more knowledgeable. They were better read, had better facts, had better traditions, had better standing. That's what the second wave brought in. We brought in better people. It is what it is. Now we've given room for the black manosphere or the manosphere period to actually do other things, to express themselves in different ways, because now that's settled. And the only reason that black men are stuck is because you want to be stuck. We settled the save yourself black man. We did that. We settled the educated lame question. Now, if you want to argue about it and rehash it, it's up to you. But all that stuff was settled. I brought in Ron Wills. I brought in Kevin Samuels. And we studied and dissected the problems. We didn't just concentrate on going back at the women, trying to refute their bullshit arguments, because most of their arguments are bullshit. We took their arguments, we took the problems, we studied them, we found solutions, we found answers, and we put the stuff out. Now, whether you're willing to use it or not, that's up to you. Some people want to stay stuck. Philosophies are not foundations. Schools of thought, which the black manosphere is, are schools of thought. Schools of thought do not have a foundation. Schools of thought do not have an outcome. Schools of thought are not corporations. Schools of thought do not need facts on the ground as far as building something solid, because they're thought. They're schools of thought. Now, will people build buildings or build structures? Eventually they might. Socrates never had a building. Plato never had a building. If you believe in Jesus, he never had a building. He carried a school of thought, a way of thinking. The black manosphere is not an organization. Just like MGTOW is not an organization. There is no MGTOW school. There is no MGTOW building. There is no MGTOW party. It's a school of thought. That's why it spreads all over the world, because it is a school of thought. The black manosphere is a school of thought, or several schools of thought. It's not just black MGTOWs or black IBMORs or SYSBM who facilitate what they call thinking black men or dating out or dating interracially, that kind of stuff. best woman for that man. It's a school of thought. Traditionalists, red pill traditionalists, it's a school of thought. And that's a sphere. It's not one thing. ADOS or the Pan-Africanists or stuff like that, that's part of the school of thought. The Black Manosphere doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to a Pan-Africanist. It doesn't belong to SYSBM. It doesn't belong to IBMOR. It doesn't belong to red pill traditionalists. Okay? It's a sphere. It's where we all come together with our ideas and the best ones bubble up and we share and argue and compare and contrast. It's not supposed to be a monolith. It's not supposed to be a party. It's not a party. Is it anti-feminist? For some people it is. It's anti-feminist. Which we talk about IBMORs, SYSBM, red pill guys, could be anti-feminist. But you have dating coaches, Alan Roger Curry, Ron Wills, C Boogie. They're not anti-feminist. They don't care. They're pro-male, but they're not anti-feminist. They're not anti-woman. But they're all in the sphere because that's one school of thought that exists inside the manosphere. You guys are making too much of this because you want to make the manosphere what you want to make it. You want to make it a monolith, and it's not. You can't make a school of thought a monolith. You can't make a sphere that has different sectors of the school of thought a monolith. It's not supposed to be. You're your own monolith. And I don't understand why Black men are trying to kill something that's working for them. Because you don't like to hear beefs. You don't like to hear panels. You don't like to hear people trying to make money off of a school of thought, okay? You don't like that. So you rather kill it. You rather destroy the train that you're riding on because you don't like the people in different cars that are fighting over whatever. Because somebody said something you didn't like and you hold a grudge. Instead of using the vehicle to get where you're going. But that's Black people. MGTOWs, white MGTOWs fight all the time. Every 9 months, there's a MGTOW war between different factions, the monks, the New Jack MGTOWs, the black pill guys, the anti-children, anti-marriage guys. There's a new war happening in MGTOW all the time, but nobody talks about that. There's beefs that go on all the time because people fight over different schools of thought. At one time, the MGTOWs were fighting the pickup artists, which were the so-called dating coaches, and the MRAs. There was this big war between the three sectors. They're still here. The only difference is that we get on panels and scream at each other because we want to be heard, which is something that I just experienced that I backed out of that I'm not going to do. I'm not going to scream to be heard. Maybe I've taken too much of the black pill, and maybe the people in this sector haven't taken enough of it because you're worried about how you feel instead of the facts on the ground. Doesn't matter that you think that it's been hijacked. It doesn't matter that you think it's taking a wrong turn. The thing is that the Black Manosphere 2.0 or Negro Manosphere, whatever you want to call it on this school of thought, 2.0 worked where 1.0 failed. And the only reason 2.0 will fail is because the people inside of it want to kill it. It ain't the women trying to killing it this time. It's your own folks inside of it killing it. And it comes down to black men. What the hell is it that you want? I asked that on a panel and nobody could answer it. What is it that you want? Because things are so good that you're griping about bullshit. You got people here in the black sector want to go back to fucking Jim Crow. As idiotic as that sounds. They say it, they don't really want to do it, they say it. They talk about going back to Jim Crow, and we get upset when a policeman shoots a dude. We want to get all tizzy because in some state, a cop pulled over somebody and shot a black dude. And then we want to go to war. But the thing is, we want to go back to Jim Crow where that was just a regular occurrence. Black people like herding cats. You wonder why movements and momentum fall apart. why black people can't coalesce and get things done. This is why. You wonder why white people can come together, donate $20 million in 2 days and start building a wall or a project that they want to get seen done because they volunteered time, labor, money, equipment. That's why they can get things done and we can't, because we're too busy attacking each other, because we're too busy wanting to be right. That comes from our mothers. Shame, guilt, need to be right. That comes from being raised in a matriarchy. Doesn't matter whether shit works or not. White folks, did the shit work? Yes, it did. Well, let's keep going. Let's do it again because the shit worked. You obliterated the other side. All them voices on the other side that were female are gone. And the ones that did try to raise up, they barely scratched the surface and they're gone too. Because they can't refute the arguments on the ground. Because every time they do, then more arguments piled up on top of them to where they can't refute it. So guess what they do? They stop it all together. You have one or two that are still trying to hang on for dear life, but they have been discredited. The big group on the other side that you call black feminists are gone. Even in the publications, basically that's dead too. All those talking points are dead. They can't even publish the stuff anymore to where it will have any effect because it's dead on arrival. Every argument, from colorists all the way down to black men don't take care of their kids, it's dead on arrival. And it's because the black sector in YouTube, the black sector in social media actually worked. It did its job. Those arguments are dead on arrival. Now the women have to look at themselves, which is what they're doing right now. The women are back at the table, looking at themselves, trying to figure out what can they do to get their men back. Because in the mind of the men, they're not taking hand-me-downs. They're not taking women that are not up to snuff. They're not taking women that are not up to par. You've changed the mindset of the men, which is what you wanted to do in the first place. It had nothing to do with the women. It's to change the mindset of the men. Now we're into changing the mindset of the women, which is what I thought you wanted in the first place. You wanted to change the mindset of the women, which is in process right now. But you want to kill it. You want to kill it. You want to see it die. But you can't kill it, which pisses a lot of people off. You can't kill it because the need for it still exists. And as long as the need is there, there will be some kind of iteration of the black manosphere. Whether you like that iteration or not, whether you like the players or not. You cannot pick the message that people want to hear. You can't do that. You want to focus on something else? That's not for everybody. Everybody's not going back to Africa. Everybody's not going to go into business. Everybody's not going to start a business. Everybody's not going to play the stock market. There's a lot of regular Joes that need to get from one day to the next. They need to figure out their relationships. They need to figure out how to handle women. And everybody's not 40. There's people that are 18, 19, 20 that need to hear the message because they weren't raised to hear this message. You have women that need to face facts within the environment that they're in and get out of that fantasy world. That's the next phase. That's how come the women are in your sphere. That's how come they're on your panels. That's how come they're in your hangouts, in your emails, in your comment section. That's how come this stuff is going on. It needs to be worked out. You're going to get some screaming and tearing of hair and people beating up on each other. That's normal. From what I've heard of the first gender war, it was just as bad, except you're screaming at women and losing. Black people are the only people I know that will throw in a winning hand because it doesn't make them feel good. Sometimes I don't understand you people. I really don't. But with that, I think I've ranted on long enough. That's my take on the black manosphere. And I'll see you guys on another one. Peace.